All right, let's get started. This is a formal council meeting, right? So let's do a gavel, and then let's do a pledge. Wait until everyone's ready. And the flag's behind us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. All right, let's do a roll call. We hung out long enough for Molly to be here. I see Molly, Justice George, Paloma Wren, and Dan. Chris White's here, Lee Kiriaku's here. Is there a city attorney on the phone?
Good evening, everyone. Mayor Nick Ward-Willis.
Hey, Nick. Are the baseball bats behind you? I think they are.
They are, yes.
Yes. All right. So that's the full house for roll call. And then first things first, let's do a community segment. And in our community segment, we have Mark Price is going to talk to us about spending some dough. All right, you're on.
Hello, everyone. I guess you guys want to spend some dough. So I was tasked with, is that working? No.
Yeah.
Okay. I was tasked with just, the proposals came in. I sort of triaged them for what they were. There were two that were related to parks, so I was able to sort of pull up some pricing based on the request and sort of look at the other ones as well. So I believe you may in your packets have gotten a memo from me with some cost estimates and sort of my sort of interpretation of all four proposals, two which were much more feasible than the other two, which were the basketball court upgrades and the bottle filling stations. The Beacon Pool repairs, I'll note, will probably happen next year. I'm aware of what that proposal was referring to, so it's a matter of simple maintenance, I think. Okay. So I don't think we need to spend any additional funds on that. I'll just make it a note to make sure those repairs are done. And it isn't a very significant thing. And then the last one was the cemetery rehab, which I believe is not property owned by the city of Beacon, but I believe we can facilitate in some way, shape, or form if there is a rehab with logistical support or material support, stuff like that. So circling back to the other two, the basketball court upgrades, I was able to look into the equipment that we currently have in the park were installed 6 to 7 years ago, so they're not that old. Those are the poles and backboards. What I would recommend doing is replacing the backboards and goals, which are sort of the play feature that I believe the proposal addresses. So the poles do not need to be replaced. They're lifetime goals. They'll last forever. And you can see reflected in there the cost of sort of municipal strength backboards and goals. So those were the ones provided by the manufacturer of those poles and will probably last a lifetime. They're really good stuff. The bottle filling stations, again, I looked at a couple of examples of municipal or park, duty filling stations, and the ones I had proposed are either can be mounted on walls or can be mounted, in the ground. We would have to be near some type of potable water source for those to work. I would make note, too, that at Memorial Park this spring, the water department went through and got all 7 fountains working. So there are 7 working fountains in Memorial. For some time, there was only one that was working. So they went through them all, repaired the masonry. We bought new tops and everything. So as of this spring, all those water fountains were working. So I don't know if a filling station would be necessary there, but we may want to look at one for Green Street and South Avenue. South Avenue will be a little bit tougher because I have to find a potable water source close to where we would want to put one. So that may be a stretch. And Riverfront, I'd hold off on until we do those major improvements in the next couple of years. Thoughts, comments, concerns?
I was just going to ask, Mark, we have in our capital plan, we have bathrooms for the basketball courts. And maybe we could include this in that project. Is that possible?
Yeah, we have some design money in the current capital plan to sort of work that into the process, and then next steps would be a construction of a bathroom, and I would definitely consider we would have to pull water to that project, so it may be a
Right.
good timing to make sure one of the amenities is like a bottle fill station or
Yeah,
a
yeah.
water fountain.
I have a question around timing around funding. So this might not be for you, Mark, maybe for Chris. So we have participatory funding in our current budget, and I see we have an item on the agenda that's to move it into buying supplies. Sort of, I don't know if we have to spend the money this year, so we have to authorize something today, or we could move it over into our budget. And maybe for you, Mark, if we didn't know quite where we wanted to put these water refilling stations, could we agree to purchase two, and then those would still, they would be flexible enough that we could then decide a later date where to put them? For example, if we wanted to hold one for South for now, we could, knowing that it wouldn't be installed until that could be solved for. Chris, is my understanding right that if we wanted to use the money that's in our budget for this particular round of participatory budgeting, we would need to vote on it today to make it into the 22 budget?
What we've proposed is to move it from participatory budgeting line to the equipment line so that Mark can order the backboards, rims, and again, I'm not sure where we're going to end up with the supply chain stuff, so we wanted to leave it a little bit flexible, that we'll either do 2 sets of basketball rims and backboards, which would be roughly $8,000, or a combination with the bottle fillers as well.
Okay.
So by moving it to his budget, he can now go out and try to order the stuff, because we have to have the money committed by the end of the year, but we have a little bit of flexibility. It's a couple extra weeks. So one of the reasons we didn't come with we're going to do exactly this is, I want Mark to try to order this, see what the times are in getting it. I also wanted to try out, before we equip all of our basketball courts, I'd like to try it and just see if these rims are going to hold up and how they're received. Similarly with the filling station, I'd like to try one and just see what the kinks are in it before we go whole in. I know that when we fixed the water fountains in Memorial, it didn't take very long before somebody knocked the head off of it, and it was a fountain. We've had recurring vandalism at the bathroom there as well. So I'm a little concerned about how long these things would hold up, and I want to try it before we jump fully in. So you'll see that the budget amendments that we had at the end of your agenda, there were 5, and now there's 6 to move that 10,000 over so he can begin that process. I also just wanted to say, with the cemetery rehabilitation, I did talk to the highway department, and they're willing to support cleanups in the spring. So they already do a little bit of work with the association that's volunteering to take care of the property, but they can provide some when work is going on, I'm sure they can be there and just incidentally have some mowers and other things that might help.
And do you think that the city could, if there is like a volunteer cleanup day, is that something that the city could promote?
Yes.
I think that would
And
be
I think
good
we
too.
could support it by, we pick up brush and bags of leaves already, and if we know they're doing an event on a particular day, we might even be able to take the vac truck out so they can just push the leaves to the side, we can vacuum them and save, some time. We do maintain the Melio Bettina side because we own part of that too. So I think there's a lot of room for collaboration with the group.
Was the legal status of the property sorted out? Do we
No.
know everything? No, okay.
No.
Well, the memo said that the property is not owned by the city of Beacon, so I didn't know if that was.
The property on North Brett is not, there are 3 parcels.
Right.
The northern, I think it's the northern parcel, the one on North Brett is owned, according to Duchess Parcel Access, by the Christ Methodist Church. There's a smaller piece in the middle, which I think is the African American burial ground. That is, there's no owner listed on that. And then the city took for back taxes the other piece, was going to sell it, and then realized that there were actually bodies interned in parts of it. So we can't. We're
That's
gonna
correct.
hold
A
on.
title search would have to be done to determine the ownership of that middle parcel.
So, I mean, we couldn't go and, for instance, do the investment in fencing right now, but there's nothing to preclude us from helping with the cleanup and coordinating with that committee.
So I'm just curious, cemeteries are taxable properties?
No.
So how do we take that piece back in lieu of
It
taxes?
it wasn't declared a cemetery. Nick, you worked on this. It was in private hands. It went back and forth between two parties.
That's correct. It was not initially known to be part of the cemetery, so it was part of a taxable lot, and then taxes stopped being paid and the city foreclosed on it. And in the process of selling it, we did some investigation. There were some indications that it might be buried bodies. A company was hired to do ground penetrating radar and confirmed that bodies were buried on that parcel. And I believe earlier the cemetery had been abandoned and turned over to the city, a larger portion of the cemetery on Melio Bettino Place.
And we'll continue to try to do research. I want to talk to the groups that are working on it and see what they know. So it's on the list. But I think we can make good progress in all four of these things. So what I would stress back when I talked to the group, that they gave us some great ideas. We did we'll fund two of them, and we'll make inroads on the other two outside of the context of this. And then there's another round next year. As you know, we put another $10,000 in participatory budgeting for 2023.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think funding one court with the new hoops and also doing one water filling station makes sense to me. I agree with what you're saying about just sort of piloting this out, and it also allows us to fund both projects. Both of those idea havers were clear that their priority was at Memorial Park, which sort of makes our prioritization, I think, simple. That's where they would like to have it. That's where they're proposing to have it. So I think that's where we should put them.
Okay. Yeah, we can look at, maybe we can see if we can parlay off the bathroom building and put something on the exterior.
I was going to say, we could, if we bought two building mount filling stations, we could then potentially put one at the Memorial Restroom and one at the Green.
One at Green,
because I
yeah.
think there were about 3,000 of these or so.
So
that would get us to
if we go a little bit over, I think we'll live. So we'll work it out. And thank you for the flexibility in doing that.
Yeah, I'd just make another plug for Green Street, because it doesn't have a lot of shade, and a lot of families don't go there during the summer because of that. If they stay over on one side, maybe, but it's not very vibrant in the summer because it's so hot.
Wow.
The Oaks
Okay.
are coming.
What's that?
The Oaks are coming.
Yes, they are. They're most of them. Most of them.
I look forward to discovering how to make our fixtures indestructible. So.
Well, I think part of the idea is also that because these proposals are coming from the community, I will say anecdotally that there was, one student proposed the basketball hoops, there were actually quite a few other students who proposed the same idea. So if the ideas come from the community, then the hypothetical is that the community will care for these things better. So I hope that pans out.
And that's been our experience with the murals, because people participated in painting those, and they have relatively little damage compared to other parts of our infrastructure.
Yeah, and we can work on ourselves getting the word out and being sure to, everyone wasn't involved in the process. So
Yeah.
in terms of community engagement that you've been working on, getting it out there.
Part of the Hoops proposal was the poles that were adjustable. I know you said we have poles now, we're not going to replace them. If we wanted to consider one or two of the adjustable poles in the future, is your understanding that these backboards could be transferred to the new poles if at some point in the future we decide it was worth it to get ones that we could move the height of?
Yeah, those adjustable poles in parks don't last long. Generally, they're lower to a point where you can dunk on them. And
Okay. I was just thinking, like, if some of our basketball programs wanted to run something for, like, younger kids and wanted that thing, and there was, enough interest that maybe there might be some specific ones we thought it was worth it. But I appreciate that overall, we don't want to. It sounds like those aren't a good fit for our needs. So.
Yeah, I mean, they can be, but my experience in parks with those is, they don't really last real long. Riverfront court rehab, we could consider a different set of, because we usually put youth height, like 9-footers for the little guys for the summer league. So there is an option to have some variety down there as well.
And that and work on that is not currently slated, or it might come in our capital plan.
It's moving around the capital
Okay.
plan in the next couple of years.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark, for fleshing these out. This was really
Yep.
helpful.
Well, thank you for this. This whole process has been neat to watch. I was able to go over to the school and talk during those classes as well. So I'm
Mark did
excited.
what we did, 6 classes.
I'm
I
excited to
heard.
see kids that participate see feedback and responses. So I like that connection completely. The kids raise their hand, they participate, and we're fleshing out a few projects that they propose. So the real world sort of showing of this is a great thing. So thank you.
And Mark will be back in January to report out the results of the survey and the community facility and program study that we did. Thanks,
Great.
Mark.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, next is the opportunity for public comments. So this is the first opportunity. You get up to 3 minutes on any topics unless we have a public hearing, which we do not have today. First on the list is Durand. Jane? Okay.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Jane Durand, and I'm a resident of Ward 1 here in Beacon. I'm here tonight and very happy to be here to express my strong support for the Beacon City Council to pass local building code efficiency standards that ensure that no newly constructed buildings in Beacon contain a natural gas hookup. We all live with the visible effects of climate change on a daily basis right here in our community. And a recent example that alarmed me was Beacon's Stage 1 drought emergency this summer that occurred when our reservoir water levels reached 60% of capacity. And we all see the constant news of the devastating worldwide effects that are just beginning to ramp up. Some might wonder why gas-free new buildings in our small city matter in the context of such a massive global problem. But I believe very strongly that local change is urgently necessary and has the potential to ripple out and make a much broader impact. And why not start with the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in New York State, which are buildings? That's why I urge you, the mayor and city council, to craft a gas-free new buildings bill that bans indoor gas hookups in all new buildings and to schedule a public hearing to discuss it. As you already likely know, Beacon has the opportunity to become the 3rd city in New York State behind New York City and Ithaca to pass this kind of leading-edge legislation. Beacon would also be the 1st city in the Hudson Valley to do so, and this would help show that there's broad support for the All-Electric New Buildings Act statewide. I've personally knocked on neighbors' doors and tabled at Spirit of Beacon to have one-on-one conversations about this policy, and in my experience, the reactions have been overwhelmingly positive. Many have actually asked me why this has taken so long. So I hope that you'll also see this as a priority and move forward quickly. Thank you to the mayor and city council members for your time.
Thank you. Is it Jackie Sawyer?
Hi, I'm Jackie Sawyer. I'm a resident of Ward 2. And I, like Jane, am here to voice my support for the gas-free building initiative. I'm hopeful that we're working towards legislation that's not only going to reduce our dependency on natural gas, but is also going to completely eliminate it in new constructions. So 1 year ago, New York City did this. They set an example for all of us to follow, and it was bold, but it was also very simple. All new buildings would be all electric. And this really sets us up for the opportunity and the possibility to lean into this increasingly renewable power grid that we're building. and I know that Beacon can be next. So Beacon is very attractive to development, as we all know, and it's not just because it's a beautiful place and it's so close to New York City, but it also has this very vibrant and connected community. And this is an opportunity for us to build a policy that's going to allow us to lead with these values and to attract the type of development that also wants to support the health of Beacon residents. So over the past year, I've also been working with Beacon Climate Action Now, and I've been knocking on doors and having conversations with my neighbors. And I echo what Jane just shared. There's overwhelming enthusiasm for this. There's a lot of interest, there's a lot of curiosity, and people really want to know what it's going to take for us to be able to make this transition away from gas. We've talked about everything. We talked about utilities. We've talked about what is the choice that you get with your energy source and or lack thereof in many cases. We are constantly talking about the mounting climate crisis, and we're also talking about the devastating impacts that it can have on health and public health. And this is, so this is a really simple, straightforward way. It's helping us build a roadmap because there's such a clear transition that we can make away from gas, starting with new buildings. So thank you, City Council, thank you, Mayor, thank you for all your service in Beacon, and I'm looking forward to the progress that we can make with gas-free buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public audience want to make a comment?
Happy holidays to everyone new and old. I'm going to go home to my gas-fueled heat tonight, passing the $1 million condos that have the electric heat pumps freezing their butts. I'm still in favor of the Dutchess County IDA's support of the Marabou seeking payment in lieu of the taxes. The city will gain prosperity from this project on many levels. Our city needs to step up its game on historic preservation across this city. Unlike the Prophecy Theater project that will be a burden to the city's infrastructure and residents across the entire city with traffic and congestion, not just the neighboring properties. The planning board did not even discuss the independent noise study. The noise consultancy report is a significant game changer. If residents could read the 7-page document, why not them? It was the most important document in the packet. Everyone in this city should read it. The report shot enormous holes in the Prophecy Theater's proposal. I like how the noise consultancies called them to task for failing to report the obvious and eluded the questions. Google the repurposed venue project the applicant compared to the River Valley Arts Center in Wappingers. He said it relies on off-site parking, as quoted in a recent Highland Current article. But according to the River Valley's calendar of events, they're only holding small-sized classes. How could they have factual statistics if they would be parking issues? That is not comparing apples to apples. I am baffled by what went on at last week's workshop. You did not discuss all the board appointments publicly, only to belabor the discussion of the reappointment of the planning board chair. Towards the end of the discussion, the mayor and the city administrator said that they would talk to him again. But how many talks will it take? Sounds like a frustrated teacher reprimanding a student. Resumes are always stacked with the good stuff. Nobody ever lists their subpar work experiences, so of course they all look good. It may be time for a new face at the table. The agenda packet also has resumes attached for different boards, and some were clearly fluff pieces. It is a very challenging position, but I think there's room for improvement in the process. You must also listen to the residents who put you at this table. They are questioning the dots. Who are their allegiances to? Residents question what happens when a new board member comes in. How can they possibly get fully up to speed on an agenda item that's been going on for 18 months or longer? The developers and the legal teams are inundating the agenda with substantial documentation to overwhelm the boards and the public. If an applicant spends good money on bad ideas, that's not the fault of the city, nor should it be the burden of the residents.
15 seconds.
It was mentioned during the workshop that there was so much work at the planning board level, maybe they should meet for shorter meetings twice a month. And in the same breath, you said that maybe the city council might hold fewer meetings during the month based on other surrounding municipalities.
Your time is
Beacon's
elapsed.
not other surrounding municipalities. Thankful some of the council members wised up and spoke out and did not agree with that suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public audience want to speak? Okay. Ben, anyone in the virtual audience?
If you are on Zoom and you'd like to make a comment, please use the raise hand option at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're on a phone, you can press *9, and you will need to press *6 to unmute once you are called upon. If you're watching on YouTube, you will need to join the Zoom by visiting beaconny.gov. Mr. Mayor, we currently have one hand raised on Zoom. That's for Megan Wang. Megan, you can go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, City Council members. My name is Megan Wong, and I live here in Beacon in Ward 3. I wanted to share why I'm in support of the council's work to draft a gas-free new buildings built for Beacon, and my request to urgently bring it to a public hearing for discussion and passage. I've had the opportunity to share this with Ren, but I wanted to take the opportunity tonight to speak to the whole council. I grew up in Beijing, China, notorious for its levels of pollution and record-breaking levels on the air quality index. It had gotten so bad that at recess sports and outdoor play for kids, this would get consistently canceled. A few years after I graduated, the school had to build an air-regulated dome so that kids could get exercise without fear of adverse effects to their long-term health. That was in 2013. While China's contribution to the climate crisis is unprecedented, I share this as I believe it's relevant to the discussion on gas-free new development in Beacon today. Having access to clean air should not be a privilege, nor should it be taken for granted. Natural gas is simply one step beyond coal, but it is not a solution that alleviates risk to personal health, and it is proven to be one of the largest drivers of climate change. Our collective effort is required to quickly make decisions and choices that will protect us and our homes now. And I really must underscore this urgency. This example is from a decade ago, yet we are still here today debating on whether we should take action or whether to wait for New York State to pass legislation. Rather, I'd much like to see the city, my city, be a leader and signal to the state that we are in support of the All-Electric New Buildings Act, which was proposed in May 2021 and has been stuck in committee since. I'm choosing to believe in our community to make decisions and choices that are in our best interest, and I urge you not to wait. We can no longer wait. Thank you.
Thank you. And you said there was only one?
Correct. There are no other hands raised at this time.
Okay. Let's go on to reports. You want to start, Dan, and we'll work the other way? Thanks.
Firstly, I just want to say thanks to the folks who came to my office hours yesterday. Had some good conversations, including one about a long-term vision for climate resiliency for Beacon and how we can become independent from the grid. It was pretty fascinating. So anyway, my office hours are every month on the third Sunday of the month from 10 to 12 at Trax Coffee House. Except in March, I will be hosting another Ward 4 community forum on that day. I want to say thanks to Paloma and to Chris and to everybody that was involved in the participatory budgeting project. It's been really a pleasure to watch this project unfold and to see the young folks who were here last week making their presentations, and it just makes me hopeful that maybe at least 4 kids saw that by participating in government they can make a difference and they can carry those lessons through their lives, but hopefully more than 4. And that's it for me. Happy holidays, everybody, and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Dan. I also echo that. Thanks so much it really has been a wonderful process to see. So I'm going to speak from the heart here, kind of following in my dear Jody predecessor's footsteps with the Be Kind and Drive Safely. Just a reminder that it's the holidays, and many of you know that I work at a nonprofit that builds housing for survivors who are homeless, people fleeing domestic violence. And so this time of year, I'm the director of fundraising, so this time of year the generosity just flows in, toy drives and items for the families, bedspreads. You don't think about the fact that someone doesn't want to bring a bed from their old house, so they need a new bed for their new home. So this is just a call out to everyone who is resourced, and that doesn't mean that you have a lot of money. You know, we all have different levels of what we can give. Think about it, you know, and go beyond just being kind, but actually participate, because all of your neighbors are a lot of people are out there doing a lot of things for each other. So that's all for me. Happy holidays.
Oof, okay. What I have to say is that I've been reflecting on this year. This is my first year as a city council member, and what I'm grateful for and what keeps coming up is participation, which is probably unsurprising coming from me. But I decided to throw my hat in the ring and run for city council 2 years ago, not because I thought I had all of the answers myself, but because the people that I have met and known and become community members and friends with here in the city of Beacon are some of the most odd and brilliant and interesting people that I have known. And I believe that as long as we all continue to be active members of this community, the city and the Beaconites, the people that make Beacon will only get better. We would be here for a long time if I tried to name all of the people who I have encountered serving this community in the last year. But I did want to call out the senior class of Beacon High School. Thank you for participating in our little experiment. We got literally more than 100 ideas of how we could be spending the budget better, and I'm very grateful for the 4 people who came and actually presented those ideas, and I'm really excited to see those moving forward, and to the teachers who have stewarded those students through this process. I wanted to thank everyone who participated in our community quarterly on public safety. I promise that in 2023 it will actually be quarterly. And every one of our city departments and staff who make the city run. To choose civil service is both a job and an incredible form of participation, and I'm so grateful for all of the work that Chris and all of the staff do. Everyone who came to my monthly office hours and shared your concerns, from holes in your floor to what I should be for Halloween, which was like multiple cats at the same time apparently. And every single person who has come and stood behind that podium. I know it can be really scary and intimidating, especially when you're sharing a personal story. And I know it's not always clear that the people on this side of the table are listening. A lot of us have our laptops up and we're taking notes, and I'm a note taker. That's how I remember things, and so I know that sometimes puts people off, but I am listening, taking notes about what you're saying, and shout out to Teresa and Dennis and Stosh and Clark and all of the people who are very constant on that side of the podium. I really appreciate your constancy, as well as everyone who's only spoken once. In one version of my report, I was going to name every single person who I've taken notes and I'm not doing it. Don't worry, you don't have to use the gavel. But I do listen and I appreciate it. And every community group who shared your proposals for our first City of Beacon Community Funding Program. And also every volunteer on our 12 city committees. There is little glory in what you do, but your efforts make an immeasurable impact and make our city better. And I do also want to acknowledge the weight of responsibility that those committees have, and I hope that we can move towards more transparency on those positions and those people in the coming years. And just want to lastly sort of drive home the point that participation is what makes our democracy go. It can be easy to focus on the decisions that are made on this side of the table. But in my limited experience on this side of the table versus my years of experience on that side of the table, I think that all of real power in the decision-making, the important conversations and the debates and the idea sharing happen on that side of the table. And so I'm just very grateful for everybody who continues to speak out and tell us what you think and make us better. And I look forward to round 2 next year. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. George?
Good evening. I just wanted to, we got a note from Chris White of the council recently that we'll now be able to enforce our short-term rental legislation that we passed a long time ago, but we didn't have the teeth or the wherewithal to actually make an impact on I think, something that is kind of has the potential to undermine our communities in so many ways. I've been hearing horror stories of Airbnbs that have been going on where neighbors have been assaulted, parties of 100 or more, of underage kids. There's a group of neighbors that are drafting a letter right now we'll probably receive shortly, complaining about one specific house on a block. And maybe Chris could go into a little bit more detail, and maybe let the community know what to expect in their mailbox, those who are running Airbnbs illegally. But I'm really glad that we'll finally be able to have an impact on this. Thank you. And then the only other thing, everyone's complaining about the kind of snafu at Central Hudson with electric bills and so on. And I know that the state is working on it, and there's lawsuits back and forth, but I just wonder if there's anything that the city could do or information that we could glean, because it's so confusing. Some people are getting, tiny little bills, some people are getting, $15,000, $17,000 bills. And I'm not sure how we can step in and help clarify what's going on, or, how liable people are for these bills. But I think if we can do something, I hope we will do something. And that's it, but happy holidays to everybody. Thanks.
I definitely want to echo a lot of what Paloma said, because I'm just flowing with gratitude as well, and I'm not going to list all of the people that I'm grateful for, but I have been reflecting on my time as a first-year council member as well. I can't believe it's been a full year, but I just want to thank everybody who's supported me, and I want to thank everybody that's shown up in all the little and big ways, everybody who's participated, because it makes a difference. I'm going to keep it short, keep it simple. I look forward to engaging with everybody in the new year and working with the members of this wonderful and beautiful community to make this city as vibrant and safe and enjoyable as possible. So thank you, and I look forward to talking to you all in the new year. Happy holidays and Happy New Year.
Thanks, Justice. I also really appreciate all the comments you made of the gratitude, and will call out specifically, as Paloma was saying, that a lot of our work here on the council, we have excellent professionals who work here in the city, and they often look for us for help, and then we look to members of the community, so it really does take all of us working together. And actually, as some of the public comment made tonight about legislation that we as the city might want to consider around regulating energy use in new buildings. It's been great to get the comments of so many people who have leaned in and shared their thoughts, have responded to our questions. And I saw that the New York's Climate Action Council just came out with their state plan. I believe they voted on it early today. And so I look forward to continuing to look into the new year and see if that's something that we as a municipality want to and see value in putting our support behind it in whatever way we want. I will also call out, because it's that time of the year, even though the snow band appears to have moved north of us, so now we're getting kind of a slushy, freezy rain mix Thursday into Friday, just like we had last week. We might get snow either this week or before we reconvene, so I want to remind people not just about cleaning sidewalks, but also about, I think it's a 2-inch snow limit. I might have you, Chris, confirm this or not, but basically if it's 2 inches or more that falls, you are required to not have your car on the street. So for those of you who are parking on the street, we have municipal lots you can put them into, but then you are then required to move your car out of those lots 24 hours after the snow stops falling. I believe that's what I read online, but someone can correct me if that's not how it works. Just want to remind people, especially those who might be having their first winter with us in this community, so that you're not caught out when your car is not where it was when you left it, when you go to get it. Lee, I'll pass it to you.
Okay, thank you. I have the luxury of going last, so I can appreciate all the comments that came beforehand. The only thing I would add, and I think Chris will have a couple of things, is that I had the opportunity to talk to two sets of high school classes on Friday about how the government works in the city and some of the history. I had the opportunity to kind of show the before and after photos that I think you've seen some of those of what Main Street looked like in the 90s when I moved in versus what it looks like today. And it was a lot of fun. Other than that, that's all I got. Thank you all. Chris, you want to talk about Central Hudson meeting today as well? You'll pick that up?
Yeah, we actually spoke to the intergovernmental person from Central Hudson today asking about the status of the billing issues. I don't know that we got the most detailed information back. I do know that the Public Service Commission, which regulates utilities, issued a scathing report last week about the billing debacle that Central Hudson had. On a city level, it's impacted us heavily because our bills were not done properly, and we've had to spend dozens of hours going through them, trying to figure out what matches up to, we had credits from the solar farm that we're supposed to be on. So we've even had a mess, George, with our billing. If people do want to reach out to you, we can put them in touch with the intergovernmental person that when we've had really chronic or acute issues, we've gone to this representative asking for them to help. So if you have a constituent that it's beyond reason, just let me know and we'll put them in touch. They claim that they have resolved a lot of the billing issues, but they weren't 100% on that either. I got the sense
Would you
that
be able to give us that number? I'm sorry.
No, but I would, if you want to refer people, I'll have them, yeah. Because if I give out the number, then they'll never answer my call again. It kind of works like that.
Yeah.
And then just a quick update on the short-term rentals. As George mentioned, we're a little bit ahead of where I thought we would be. We've had a transition in the building department. We've been working steadily towards launching this enforcement mechanism through Granicus, which the county supported through a grant. We sent out the first wave of letters last Friday to everybody who is advertising on any kind of short-term rental site and who does not have a valid license with us. So those give a 30-day response time, so by mid-January we'll start to see what we're getting back. But again, if you have particular properties that are causing havoc in the neighborhoods, we can hit that with a number of different things. So just let me know about those properties.
I will.
Because while we're doing the broader kind of cleanup, we also need to hit those really problematic spots. My last thing is I just want to, I know a lot of people like to get Christmas trees this time of year. Be careful with fire, keep enough water on them, and when you're done with them, you can leave them on the curb and we actually pick them up, bring them down to the transfer station and chip them up and compost them. So if you're new to town and you know that you're going to have a tree, you can just leave it out on your curb, take all the pretty tinsel and other decorations off, and we'll take it from there. And that's all I have. Thank you.
The only thing I'd add on the short-term rentals is we're going to have two sets of issues. There'll be a bunch of people who aren't registered but would qualify, and we'll want them registered. That doesn't mean if they're not causing problems, we'll chase them down for other reasons. And then there'll be a second group who don't qualify.
Correct.
So it will be interesting to kind of observe the patterns and see what we can do. All right.
Out of curiosity, how many unregistered Airbnbs did we have? Do we know yet?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 85.
85, okay.
So it went down since the summer.
Mhm.
So we're just launching what we've got at the moment. So- And I think we have 11 or 12 that are permitted. So that's down about 20 since the summer when we talked about this.
And we talked about readdressing the short-term rental law after we see the results of Granicus work, didn't we?
I don't know that we had discussed that so much as just enforcing what we've got on the books.
Yeah, I think we were going to.
I think we had a vague conversation about maybe we'll learn something that we need to improve about the law, but I don't think we agreed to.
I recall any edits to the law would just be to make it more enforceable, not necessarily to change the policy.
Right.
I just wanted, just one 101 thing about your Central Hudson bill. In my experience, just taking monthly photos of your meter makes it able for you to self-report. So even if Central Hudson is reading everything wrong, if you're keeping records, that's very helpful. It's helped me, at least, because they've all been wrong. They're still wrong.
All right, we got 15 items, and so if you humor me, I would entertain a motion to combine items 1 to 4, which are appointments of employees to different positions.
Motion to combine the employees being, sorry, Molly.
I would recommend that that motion also include that the minutes will reflect that the individuals are hired in the order in which they are set forth in the resolutions and the agenda packet in that numbered order.
Okay. You did say that, didn't you, Red?
I said motion to combine them and do what
Yeah.
Nick said, yeah.
Okay. Is there a second?
I will second that.
All right. So what we're doing is, in this order, we're appointing Chris Egito, sorry, Chris, that Chris, not this Chris, to the position of heavy motor equipment operator, and then Zachary Ross to the position of heavy motor equipment operator. And I understand now why we're doing it in that order. And then James Cottrell to the position of motor equipment operator. And then finally of Edison Tenesaka to the position of motor equipment operator. Any discussion on that? Chris, would you add anything?
No, these were all discussed at the workshop last week. And again, the reason we want to keep them in order is the 2 spots for HMEO are from people who are MEOs, they're motor equipment operators. So once they're promoted, then we're going to backfill the 2 openings. And this is coming just in time for snow season, so I'm glad to have our HMEOs up to full ranks.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
Was that the motion to bundle?
Oh.
Yes.
That was the motion to bundle. Fine.
Okay.
Sorry. Appreciate that. And then on the motion itself, now that we've bundled them, we've put them together. So now I need a motion and a second to approve that combined 4 appointments.
Motion to appoint Christopher, Zachary, James, and Edison to the positions outlined in these resolutions.
Okay.
Second.
All right, so that's Paloma and Justice. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, good. And then if you, again, humor me, I'd like to get a motion to combine items 5 to 9, which are appointments to the various boards. What do y'all think?
And the order doesn't matter on these.
Yeah,
But then you can only vote one way on all candidates.
yes, that's right.
So I'd prefer that we keep them separate, please.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. That's why I'm asking. Everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. So let's do first a reappointment of John Sedella to the Board of Assessment Review. Can I get a motion and second?
Motion?
Second?
Any discussion?
I appreciate, Chris, you and Ben putting together a little more background on John Stella for us to take a look at, and he looks like he has some great community and relevant experience for this position, so thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Ben.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Second one is reappointing John Gunn to the Planning Board. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second?
Any discussion?
Did you and Chris have a chance to talk to John Gunn? I know we mentioned that last week in the workshop, because I brought up that many constituents have had difficult interactions with him.
So I have not had that discussion yet, but we will schedule it. So.
Yeah.
Okay. If that's the case, at this time, I don't feel comfortable, so I'm going to abstain from this vote. And Nick, I am well aware of what an abstention means.
Okay.
I had a point of clarification. If the city council votes on planning board members, but the mayor appoints the chair of the planning board. So all we're voting on right now is membership on the planning board. Is that correct? Okay.
And Justice, I'll make a point of having that conversation. I was unaware that there was a timeliness to it, so apologies. All right. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
No.
And then any abstentions?
I abstain.
Right.
Yes.
All right, so it carries with one no vote and one abstention. All right. And then the next one is to appoint Kevin Byrne to the Planning Board. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
All right, who wants it?
Parse that one out.
Motion.
Second.
Dan and Justice. Any discussion?
I had the opportunity to sit in this last planning board meeting, and I just really admire Kevin's patience and the way that he dealt with the public. So I just want to throw that out there.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And then the next one is appointing David Jensen to the Planning Board. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
So that's George and Molly. Any discussion? And as you all know, David is currently the chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
That's great. I hope he doesn't think they're all 2-hour meetings like they were this month.
I think he knows what he's getting himself into. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so that creates an opening on the Zoning Board of Appeals, and so the next one is to appoint Stowe Boyd, who's been chair or co-chair of the Main Street Access Committee, to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second?
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And anyone opposed? So that leaves the chair of the Planning Board. I will reappoint John Gunn as chair of the Planning Board, and then there's also an opening to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I will appoint Jordan Haug. It takes me a minute to get that one out, as the chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals. He's currently I believe the vice chair, is that what they call it?
Or deputy chair.
Deputy chair, so, okay. Thank you all. And again, I will have a conversation in the next week over the holidays.
And they did do a training in November about the powers of the planning board. So we did confirm that happened.
Good. Which I believe was the issue that was given.
And we are trying to get them set up in an easy format on our website, which hasn't happened yet, but is pending.
I just want to make a point of clarification. The discussion that I think is most pressing with John Gunn is just dealing with the public in general and making sure that, like, as this position, as we engage back and forth in all of these seats, that we do so with some grace and as much kindness as possible in however long those meetings end up. And I recognize that they're long meetings, but just, a little more.
I agree with that, and that was my sort of clarifying question. I have no concerns about John Gunn's qualifications to be on the planning board itself. However, I think the chair of the planning board has a particular responsibility to be that leader, and that includes interfacing with the public. And I don't know what would support John best in being able to do that better, whether that is clearer rules, or as we have in city council, or changing the meeting schedule, but want to make sure that that happens.
Okay, thank you. If it's okay, let's go on to item 10, and that would be a resolution authorizing the city administrator to execute an agreement with Brown & Brown for insurance services.
Motion.
Second.
George and Molly, any discussion?
I really appreciate your thoughts that you shared, Chris. So for those who didn't listen to the workshop last time, we'd asked some questions, because there was a great increase in our cyber insurance related to cyber threats. And so we'd asked about experiences of other municipalities, and there was one in Suffolk County on Long Island that there's some news reports about. If you kind of look it up, you can probably find out yourself if you're interested, but that was definitely very sobering, the number of people who had had their personal information hacked into as well, not just city staff, but also people who happen to use the services of the county as well. So I appreciate sharing that, and also sharing that actually even if we were to increase our deductible, it wouldn't necessarily make that big of a difference in the amount we have to pay. So I appreciate you providing that extra clarity.
Thanks. And we did talk to our IT consultant, Enable Your Biz, which has done our IT consulting for years, and they were completely in support of going with a more robust coverage. They feel like they have us well covered, but again, we see some of the most sophisticated companies and governments in the world getting hacked, so having that extra layer is not bad. And we are going to go with the proposed, we looked at the price of the policy with a $50,000 deductible, and it didn't make sense economically to do it. So I think you need a motion, right?
No, I think we
Did
had
you-
a motion and a second.
You need a
George
vote.
and Molly.
I motioned.
All right,
Yep.
cool.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Next one is authorizing the city administrator to execute an agreement with WSP for construction inspection services on the Fishkill-Teller Avenue project.
Motion.
Second.
All right, that was Ren and Justice, I hope.
Yep.
Any discussion or anything you would add, Chris?
No, just if people didn't watch the workshop meeting, this is a contract for construction support and construction inspection for a federal aid project that we're doing to rebuild Fishkill Avenue and Teller Avenue. 95% of the project is covered by state and federal funds, and as part of that requirement, we have to have full-time construction inspectors on the job. We hope to go to bid in January. I'm still waiting for the last authorization on Teller Avenue from the New York State Department of Transportation. I'm told that's coming either late December or early January, and then we hope to begin construction in late March or April. It's about an 18-month project, and it replaces all the sidewalks. We'll replace about 500 feet of sewer pipe, do all of the storm drains, a number of intersections and light improvements, pedestrian safety improvements, and again, will be a much-needed upgrade to one of our roughest roads in the city. And we're really looking forward to launching it.
Does WSP have a specific role in the monitoring of the pedestrian safety of that project?
You mean during construction? So we will have a full-time inspector and then a resident engineer on. They do make sure that all traffic control is being done per the contract, and that includes for pedestrians. So if somebody's closing down a sidewalk, they actually have to show how they're safely getting to the next part of the sidewalk as well. And they're there for the duration of the project. So it's kind of like what we hired for the firehouse, where I have somebody there, every hour that somebody's working to make sure deliveries are correct, the products are what we purchased, things are done correctly, so we're not ripping out, whole sections of sidewalk. And they'll do all the safety, worker safety, and then all the reporting for DOT.
Chris, assuming we do end up being able to go to bid in January, is there yet a sense of when we'll have the timeline of things like when Fishkill Teller Avenue will be closed, what pedestrians and motorists can expect? Would that come sometime in February, or?
That would likely come later. So you would do your bid award. Then we would go under contract and have a kickoff meeting. And usually the kickoff meeting is where you begin, the vendor proposes the schedule, and then there's a little bit of back and forth. What we're hearing is we have utility relocations that still need to take place, and they're primarily in the teller section. So my guess would be when we tell the vendor that, they'll maybe start on the Fishkill Avenue side, even though we have a couple poles still to relocate there. You see a whole series of new poles where they've moved over the electric and maybe Verizon, but there's a couple cables left. So we're really trying to get those utilities to move their infrastructure over to the new poles and then get rid of the other poles that are in the way.
Okay.
So I'll probably have a better idea of timing by April or May.
Okay, great, thank you.
And we can keep updates on that.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a whole rollout. I'm sure we'll get questions about it whenever it does start, so I think as much as it makes sense to bring us in so we can then answer constituent questions would be great. But I appreciate knowing that it won't be till, well into 2023.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Are we ready? Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. We've got amendments to the operating budget. Let me get them out. So are there?
So there's one addition to the ones that we discussed in workshop, which is the last one in the general fund. Moving $10,000 from the city council participatory budgeting line to the recreation purchase of equipment line.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion in a second. I will summarize the budget items. So included in the motion of the second are the following amendments to the 2022 budget: a transfer of $63,000 from transferred from regular salaries and transferred to overtime, right? Because we've had fewer hires in regular salaries, and so we're moving the funds over to overtime.
In police.
In police. The second one is also in police, and it's a transfer from regular salaries of $5,000 to crossing guard salaries of the same amount. The third item is from the general fund for the highway budget, and it's a transfer from regular salaries of $14,600 and change to a temporary position for $3,800, and then the rest for overtime for about $10,800. Again, all in the highway budget, from regular salaries to temp and overtime. Then the fourth one is a transfer from, and it's $100,000 and change from contingency in the retirement portion of contingency, and then the general contingency fund. That $100,500 and change goes to severance and retirement of about $55,500, Social Security of $4,200, and then also another severance retirement pay of $40,700 and change. The fifth item is a transfer within the general fund in the insurance budget, $37,000 from contingency over to insurance package policy. So this is moving an item from contingency into an item where it can be spent. And then the sixth item is also in the general fund. It's in the council and the recreation budget. So we're moving $10,000 from the council's participatory budgeting line into the recreation department in the purchase of equipment to allow us to execute those purchases before year end. I'm looking for a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second.
So that's Ren and Dan. Any discussion? Hearing lots and lots of discussion. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. And then the next one is authorizing the 2023 City Council meeting dates and times. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
Molly and Ren, did I do okay?
Yeah.
I think so. All right. And generally, those are on the first and third Mondays, are the official meetings, the second and final?
No.
No? No?
No.
General?
No.
I was going to do the exceptions.
No.
Oh, apparently not.
It's actually back exactly opposite to what you just said. So we're starting with a workshop. The workshops will be the first and third. They got inverted because when you start your council service the first year, there's a number of things that you have to pass immediately right outside the gate. It didn't make sense for us to start January with a voting meeting because we're voting on everything tonight, and it made more sense to do a workshop. So now, and this has been amended since last week to revise June, which is back to 4 meetings, and also we changed the July dates that Molly flagged that would have been conflicting with something.
So,
Yes.
Nick, question. Anything in the charter on which week of the month are our official meetings? I don't think so, but I want to confirm.
There is not. It's our position that the council has the discretion to determine the meeting dates. There is language that talks about certain dates the congregation needs to meet, but we think that you have that discretion to set your meeting calendar.
Okay, so I stand corrected. The entire year is upended.
Get used to it.
I know.
All right.
Yeah, I honestly hadn't thought about that. I hope that doesn't mess, I don't know, anyone in the public up. I don't see why it would.
Well, you're still meeting every other week. I mean,
We just
you're
have to
meeting
say
every
every
week,
week.
and it's just,
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
We just
Yeah.
have to rephrase.
Yeah, and it'll be posted, so.
And the school board meetings are?
They're always in conflict with us.
Well, they may
But-
conflict with the workshops now as opposed to the council meetings.
That would be an
What would you like to
improvement.
do? You want to redo the
No,
whole calendar?
I think that's a better, actually.
I'm just reacting to the change,
Actually,
and
that
how
would
difficult
be,
change
yeah,
is.
that would be an improvement if that were true. If our meetings were on their workshops and their workshops were on our meetings. That would be better. That would be better.
Okay, so, any other discussion on this now that it's been clarified when the meetings are?
I just want to thank Ben again for putting this together. It looks amazing and is so clear.
All right, you're all in favor?
So I had one related question. I had noted this to Drew last week. Nick, I don't know if you have an update on, this isn't directly related to the calendar, but what authority the city might have to recognize alternative holidays, particularly looking at Columbus Day versus Indigenous Peoples' Day. If you're there.
One would think after 3 years I would remember to unmute when I speak. Apologies. So the city certainly has the ability to adopt a resolution recognizing, for example, Columbus Day to be known as Indigenous Peoples' Day. The difficulty is that the state law and federal law sets forth the authority to prescribe those holidays, and they're also within certain contracts as well. So it requires further research on our part to determine how to most effectively implement what the council wishes to, or has been discussing. So we're still looking into that.
Okay, so the clear path forward is to just annually write a resolution to name a certain day, a certain holiday, and so we know we can do that if we want to.
Correct.
But still not sure if there's any other authority or mechanism to recognize the holiday differently.
That is correct. So you can adopt a resolution recognizing Columbus Day in the city of Beacon as Indigenous Peoples' Day, but to officially change the name of a holiday for the city calendar purposes and for the contractual purpose, we're not seeing the clear path, but we are looking into it.
Got it. Thank you for that update.
Okay. Nick, just a quick question. We've already put the change of name on our calendar because that was easy. I wouldn't expect we're going to open up contracts to rename holidays. So I'm not clear what, like, we've already changed it on the calendar. What else would we do if we were going to pass a resolution?
Well, I think by adopting it today, you're doing that resolution, but you're not abolishing Columbus Day in the city of Beacon. You're just recognizing it on the city calendar as Indigenous Peoples' Day, for example.
Okay.
My understanding is it's sort of like we name, I mean, the mayor can pass mayoral proclamations.
Proclamations.
I can do that all day long.
Yeah.
Happy to.
And so this would fall under that category. It wouldn't require the changing of any contracts or the reopening of any.
It would not, no.
Yep, happy to do it.
Okay. Good.
Okay. Now are we good on the calendar? You're right? Good. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And I'm still in awe. Okay. The next item is a resolution authorizing the city administrator to execute an agreement with United Safety for Beacon Fire Station Abatement Project. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
And this is the hazardous stuff abatement?
Yes, this is asbestos-containing materials and a limited amount of lead that's in the Tompkins Host Firehouse. We're going to clean the building before we begin the reconstruction later in March or April. We got 8 bids on this, so we got had a very competitive bid process and a very competitive low bid at $132,200. So this would award the bid to United Safety and allow us to line up the contracts so work could begin in the first half of January. And the building is moving towards being cleared out. We've now added temporary housing facilities for the 2 firefighters who were there at our DPW garage. We have a trailer that's on site. We're hooking it up with water, and hopefully by next week they will be moving out of that building. And the volunteers did a great job of removing, decades worth of memorabilia, and I really appreciate their efforts to do that.
They're okay with their temporary digs? I know the old ones were definitely in need of an upgrade. The temporary.
Yeah, they look pretty good. I mean, we got a little work to do this week on it.
Okay.
Yeah. Having water would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're working on that.
Okay. Any further discussion on this?
When did this one get added to the agenda? I'm sorry, I was just looking at a version of the agenda packet.
It was on last week, and then it didn't get on the regular agenda, which I realized this morning, and we added it at the last minute.
Okay.
But we talked about it at workshop, and
Yeah, there's an email from Ben on it today about adding it and it being inadvertently.
yeah, I'm sorry that
dropped
wasn't
off.
on.
My apologies, council.
All right. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, and now what we've all been waiting for, the approval of the minutes of December 5th. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
So Paloma and Molly. And anything interesting? Changes, additions, deletions, errors, omissions? For the end of the year, we have a unamended set of minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Okay. This is the second opportunity for public comment. Anyone who didn't speak the first can speak at the second. I'm looking out of the audience for anyone who wasn't here in the first part, but I'm not hearing anyone coming forward. Anyone in the online arena? Ben?
Yes, we have one hand raised, listed only as NK.
Okay. Tell us who you are and where you live, and you got 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Novlet Smith, and I'm in Ward 2. So this is my first attendance at a council meeting, and I have to say I'm happily impressed with the city's regard for the effects of climate change, and also for some of the other issues that were discussed today by the city council and by members of the public. I did wonder whether or why, actually, we are not allowed to pay school taxes by credit card. I don't know if there's ever been any discussion of that. As I said, this is my first my first attendance at a meeting. But I do know that we are allowed to pay the city property taxes by credit card, and it would be most helpful to homeowners, I believe, in the city to be allowed to pay the school taxes by credit cards, which obviously you know the school taxes are far greater than the property taxes. So I don't know the process here as to, and I don't know if you're going to respond right now, probably not, but if you could, I don't know what the process is, as I said, but if you could just give that some consideration, if the city has anything to do with the determination of how these taxes are paid, then I'd like for the city to consider changing that rule. And if the city doesn't take any part in that determination, then if you could give guidance as to how this is determined so that I can address the concern elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just as a point of information, so the school district is a separate taxing authority. I'll ask Ben to pass that comment along to the school district. The city does permit payment online of bills, including taxes. There is a charge, so by state law or by law, the municipality has to have the person paying pay the fee for using a card, which is why there is that fee. So I can just let you know that, and we will pass the comment along to the school board. Okay.
And just to clarify who Ben is, because I think our caller is not a regular, so Ben is the assistant to the mayor.
Yeah.
And will reach out to the school board about the concern that was brought up. Thank you.
Right, and if you could get to Ben your name, I just wasn't able to kind of hear it, but you can sort that out afterwards, all right? And that's, Ben, you got anyone else online?
No one else online, and I just wanted to clarify, the best way to get me your information for follow-up would be to call the main line during business hours and get connected over to me. My name is Ben Swanson. Thank you.
Okay.
And the main line is 838-5000.
5,000.
845-838-5000.
Okay. Very good. I'm looking for a final motion of the year.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Justice and Molly.
Buzzers for next year.
All in favor?
Aye.
Jeopardy buzzers.
All right.
I was
Yes,
like
so you were just
cleansed, like,
practicing
for trivia
Jeopardy.
on
You
Thursday.